Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host and the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Ultiworld senior editor Keith Rayner. Keith, 1 week ago, really a little less than a week ago, we speculated about our U24 team selections. And now we have the team. So we get to do the immediate accounting of our picks, our locks, our likelies, and the folks that we didn't mention.
I imagine the USA Ultimate was just waiting for us to give our thoughts so they could incorporate that into their roster making decisions.
Of course. I mean, the coaches are waiting to hear what we have to say. So we get a chance to look at it all today, and there's definitely a few surprises, I would say. A few surprises. Nothing that feels totally shocking in my view, but still some things that stand out. So why don't we just start with this, Keith? What's your overall impression of these teams?
Well, I know this is going to come as a shock, but they look pretty strong. I might go so far as to I might be willing to sprinkle a little money on them to win gold.
No.
For the what? I believe it was they've won 11 out of 12 available goals. Which how bad is that women's team in the? I can't believe they didn't win. It's unbelievable.
That's right. That was crazy that year when they were just letting Jesse Schaffner ride the bench as they very clearly
we've talked about this so many times.
That was insane.
And she came in for 4 points and immediately game changed all of them.
The coaches did a horrendous job. Let's just be honest. I don't remember who the coaches were, so no hard feelings, but that was bad.
I'm sure it stings. These overall teams obviously are strong. That's not a surprise. I mean, the talent. It would be hard to take a group, any random assorted group from this talent pool, and not come out with the favorites. But I don't know that I have something overall looking at these rosters that's a big shock to me, given what we knew about the pool coming in. But there's definitely some surprises, which we expected surprises. You don't know which surprises to expect. There's definitely some surprises. We have less information than usual. We have less tryout information, I'd say, than we've had in the past couple cycles. So Charlie and I are working with imperfect information here. But from what we can tell, I mean, there's some players that I think aren't really big names, and it'll be a great opportunity for them to get in front of people and show people what they can do.
So let's see, how many players ended up getting picked?
72.
72 players.
It's 24 per roster.
All right. And so we mentioned on last week's show as possible picks, all but 25 of the players.
It's pretty good.
The roster. And to be honest, when I look at the players that we didn't talk about, there are not so many where I'm like, oh yeah, we really should have mentioned their name. I think it's that many of those players fall in what I would consider to be surprise category, or players that I'm just simply less familiar with. But let's do some accounting here. First of all, a couple of players that we had as locks that did not make the team. Well, they didn't try out ultimately. So Riley Kirkman-Davis, Marie Perivier did not try out. We also both had on our likely list Grace Connerly. She did not try out either. So a couple notes there. What that means is that almost all of our locks made it. So they were all but locks. But we both had Hazel Ostrowski as a lock. She did not make the team. And I had Declan Kervick. But I picked the wrong Vermont guy, Keith. Did
you pick the wrong Vermont guy or the wrong Declan?
Well, I also had Declan on Miller on my likelies list. He made it. But I guess I should have swapped him.
Yeah. Look, I told you, I said that I expected at least one Declan to make it, and more likely 2 than 0. And that came to pass. But yeah, the Vermont talent pool, I mean, it felt like that even watching them last year, that the top end of that roster, a pretty flat talent group. So I think that some of the players that maybe are less talked about because they weren't just shining on the U20 stage or putting up an all freshman campaign last year, players like Johnny Sickles, went under the radar, and now they're going to get a chance to show off what they can do. I mean, there are definitely points where I watched that team last year where Johnny Sickles was the best player on the team.
So Keith, give us some stats here on the team, especially around which schools are most represented, which areas are most represented. What do you got for us?
Well, it's going to come as no surprise after back-to-back college championships, but the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, the University of National Champions, which is a really wonderful nickname. They lead all schools in selections. There are 9 players from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. That is 4 from the Pleiades women's team and also another 5 from Darkside. So Ben Dameron, Matt McKnight, Kevin Pignone, Rutledge Smith, and Josh Singleton, and Teresa Yu, Kaylin Louder, Dawn Colton, and Erica Birdsong. That also means that they have 2 players from that group who are on the US U20 team, so of which there are quite a few. I believe there's 6 players who are on the U20 teams and a 7th who was selected to play on U20 who have made the U24 rosters. Colorado, second most players from University of Colorado. Makes sense too. Tracks with exactly what we would expect. They had 3 from Mama Bird, Nate Buckholtz, Danny Landisman, and Calvin Stoughton. And on Quandry's side, they had Stacey Gaskill, Khalil Phillips, and Emma Williamson, who's I think one of the surprise picks, if you ask me. Washington had 4 that made them third, and then there are a number of other schools that have 2 representatives, 3 representatives. But those are the 3 schools that really had a big cohort.
And certainly no surprise.
No.
I think maybe I feel somewhat surprised about how many Darkside men made the team. They're all on the open roster. And it is worth noting that David Allison is one of the assistant coaches, the head coach of Darkside. But not to say that they're not great players. I mean, I think you look at the way that they went out there and beat this Brown juggernaut team last year in the final, and such impressive performances from guys like Ben Dameron, Rutledge Smith, Matt McKnight makes the team. Who have I not said? Kevin Pignone and Josh Singleton. So that's a lot from one school to be on a team together. On the other hand, I don't think there's a better university in the country in terms of developing really strong players.
And we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about Ring and the World Games team and how playing in a singular system for basically your entire life from middle school on up might be to the detriment of trying to make the World Games team. But, the system's kind of come to them now. They've kind of forced the game to them. And now everybody's kind of doing what UNC was doing at this level. So honestly, at U24, it may be a boost to be able to play well in the types of systems that people are running, because that style of play is really taking control of College Ultimate, especially on in the men's division. So I don't know if these 5 guys were like, all right, we're playing together, which seems kind of boring to me. Like I love playing with my friends too, but you're gonna go play with all these amazing players. Why not mix it up a little bit, make some new friends? But they're all gonna play together, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them like playing on a line together. Might be interesting to have the UNC line with a couple extra guys out there. See how it works out.
Few folks on here that are not in college or didn't go to college. And there is one young woman who is not yet in college, who is 16 years old. Chloe Hakimi, Keith, makes the team.
Wow.
And I guess she might be able to make it twice more.
Three more times.
3 times more, because they do it every 2 years. That's right.
Yeah. So a chance at representing the U.S. national team at the, like, I guess the non-adult levels. I don't know how you would group U20 and U24 together 5 times, because we'll be able to play for another U20 team as well, I believe.
And obviously we'll make that team.
Yeah. And you know what? You could make all the arguments about like what the decision-making process should be for if Hakimi should be on a team like this. Like, do we need her to play on 5 national teams when that could be somebody else's chance? Could she give one up? Sure. But from a purely like merit-based, what can you bring me on the field standpoint? Like, I don't have a really credible argument that she's not at the level already.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. If you check out footage of High School National Invite from last year, you will see her tearing it up. And I think we're going to see a lot of Chloe Hakimi for a long time to come if she sticks with the sport.
I mean, she was clearly one of the best players on the U20 team as the youngest player there.
Right. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So let's see. I guess if we look, let's talk about snubs. And then we can talk about some of the players that we didn't mention that made the team. But where are your biggest surprise snubs, Keith?
My snubs or what the streets are saying, Charlie, because there's only one name the streets are talking about. That's no, my biggest snub is Hazel Ostrowski. We talked about how she was in our locks, didn't make it. Big surprise for me. A player who seems like she could fit with any group, is an extremely hard worker, is a good leader. Like I would have thought she was a shoe-in. Obviously she was in my lock category, so I had very few doubts, but that's definitely the biggest surprise for me was Hazel Ostrowski.
Well, she was on the All-American second team this past season. She played Elite Club with Sprocket. She was the 2020 Rookie of the Year. Of course, that was the shortened COVID season, but, she was unbelievable. I remember watching her at Stanford Invite and being extremely impressed. And was selected as a top 14 player in the women's division this past college season. So it really is surprising. Yeah.
I would be curious to hear, how she performed at tryouts, what her health was, what the coaches were seeing, because it just seems like a player who, like, sometimes you're competing for your role and maybe that's part of it. And there are really good players who happen to play a similar role to you, or your style of play is different. But like, this is somebody who's played on the East Coast, has played on the West Coast, has played college club, played mixed with mixtape back in the day. So like somebody who has experience in the mixed division too. Just seems like an easy fit. So I'm definitely a bit surprised by that.
Dylan Hawkins, Keith. That is the talk of the town, though. People complaining that Dylan Hawkins, I've seen people saying he's a top 10 player in the college division and he didn't make the team. How is this possible? Well, maybe he's not a top 10 player in the college division. Maybe that's possible.
I think maybe they thought he's too good. Like we can't have,
we have to
the team needs to be nerfed. WIFTIF actually gave it the kibosh on this. They were like, no, we've got to keep things competitive. So no Dylan Hawkins allowed.
What do you make of this? Has the hype train just run too fast on Mr. Hawkins?
I think so. I think it got out ahead, but I think he was, a player who I didn't have him on my likely list. So for me, he kind of fell into that middle ground where, like, yeah, he can make the team and yeah, he can miss. And a lot of talented players, maybe now that he's at UNC, like, does that hurt? Like, is there like, oh, we can't take too many UNC people. So somebody's got to get the cut. Does that hurt? I don't know. Maybe you give him a pass because he's an NC State guy originally, but now that he's going to UNC, like, does that impact his chances? I would like to think not, but it's something you got to think about.
I think that there's an upper boundary on what coaches are going to be willing to do to take players from an individual school. I don't know what that number is.
Including, and like, yeah, maybe you say that having David Allison on the staff makes it look like, oh, well, that probably boosts UNC players' chances, but it also means that if you take too many UNC players, you start to really look like favoritism because you have literally a coach on the staff. So I don't know.
I think the other big surprise for me, just looking through folks that I had on my likelies list that didn't make the team, nothing blows me away. Lila Bannister, I expected to make the team. Theo Shapinski, a bit of a surprise for me. Nate Little, who seemed to be having a good tryout, somewhat of a surprise there. And Jake Thorne also already seen a little bit of complaining about maybe a couple of really strong defenders from SLO not making the team.
Yeah, Thorne and Little both stand out to me as players who I think have a lot of experience, have clearly defined skill sets, like what you're going to get out of them from on this, particularly on the defensive side. Those are guys who, like, as far as the likelies, like, they would have been near the top of my likely list for the men's side. So I was surprised by those as far as my likely list that didn't make it.
So the next thing I want to do here is talk about folks that we did not mention that did make the team. Now, one player in particular has stood out. In fact, there was just a comment moments ago in the Ulti World Discord that Charlie and Keith are coastal elites because there was North Central erasure for not mentioning Paul Krennic from the University of Minnesota, who was on our Breakout Players of the Year list this year, had a great college nationals, and neither of us put him in any of our categories. He did make the team. He's on the mixed team. So thoughts there, Keith? Did we swing and miss? There's been some big complaining on Twitter as well about this.
I had multiple people reach out to me after the show to say that we were sleeping on Paul Krennic. So the Minnesota group's going to rally behind him, which is totally fine. I support that. To hype your people up within reason. But he had a solid season with the wind chill. Like, definitely a player who is on the way up. And I'm not surprised that he made the team. And I do feel like maybe I should have had him. Like, if I had a maybes list, I think he would have been there, but maybe I should have been thinking about him as a likely.
Yeah, I can see it. I think it's harder to sometimes spot a player who emerges at college nationals as clearly like a key guy. And I mean, I say that particularly about myself because of the limited window of which I get to watch college nationals these days. So, I think when I watched Minnesota, it was very obvious to me that Cole Jurek was the best player on the field. Cole Jurek not eligible this year for U24s. And maybe that took away from my ability to ID Krennic. But certainly not surprised. Was like second on the team in goals, fourth in assists, and just did a lot of the little things. And that combined with like elite level experience makes a ton of sense that he made the roster.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes on and like backs up that hype and ends up being one of the top performers. That would not surprise me given what we've been told about him.
So I'm going to just run through all of the names we did not mention that made the team. So Congratulations, of course, to everybody who made it. Rachel Chang, Lane Dodge, Marguerite Downey, Kira Flores, Emily Kemp, Laura Toe, Emma Williamson, Claire Schmidt. Those are the women's team people that we did not mention. Here's the mixed: Nicole Chan, Jacob Cohen, Ellen Kubrilovich, Olivia Goss Krennic, Sarah Liang, Kaylin Lauder, and Cole Moore. And then on the men's team, Nate Buchholz, Itai Chang, Lucas Coniaris, Francisco Fernandez, Scott Heyman, Adam Miller, Kevin Pignoni, Johnny Sickles, and Josh Singleton. Singleton, not Sickleton. Anybody on that list stand out to you, Keith?
Yeah, when you look at that list, like I got to start with Rachel Chang. I mean, we talked about U20 players who could make the team. I think Rachel Chang stood out on the U20 group. I still don't know if I would have expected her to make the team here. I think that she had a shot at it, but if you put, Chloe Hakimi near the top of the potential U20 pool, I think that I had expectations that they wouldn't take a lot of those players. But they did take a couple, and Chang gets in there. But after the club season that she had for Nightlock, that was pretty eye opening. So really an impressive thrower, and it'll be interesting. Like, could we end up seeing her and Chloe Hakimi operating together in the backfield? These like teenage players who I'm pretty sure Rachel Chang has another year of high school left. So not even just like, oh, I'm about to go into college. Like the only two returners, we didn't mention this, we talked about the stats. The only two returners are Stacey Gaskill and Abby Hecko because we missed a cycle because of the pandemic.
Right.
So Hecko and Gaskill, they both made the team before they had played College Ultimate. And now you're seeing the same thing play out with Hakimi and Rachel Chang. So definitely that's one of the names that jumps out to me.
I'm interested about Nate Buchholz making the team.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the guy that I would have picked from Colorado to make it. Not and there's a lot of great players on Mama Bird right now, but Buchholz was not the name that I would have picked first. And so interesting to see that. I mean, strong defender. I think that's a very useful skill to bring to a U24 team. are you a great matchup defender? If you are, and you can play solid offense, you're going to have a chance to make the team.
Yeah, and Lucas Coniaris kind of in the same boat. I had Jeremy Koish in my dark horses last episode. I had the wrong alley cat. I had the wrong one. I thought it could have gone that way, but I went with Coniaris, who had a breakout year with the alley cats with all the injuries they had, along with Koish getting onto the team. That's definitely exciting to see some of those smaller communities get a chance to be represented as well. Also, how about that Grady team? Francisco Fernandez at Harvard was not a player who was really on my radar. He was on Chain Lightning, but didn't play a very big role for them. So not a player I was like really looking out for. But now you get him reuniting with Adam Miller and Aiden Downey, who is I believe on the other roster. I don't actually think he's on the open roster with them. But remember that high school national invite champion Grady team?
Yes, I do.
Frankie Fernandez with was a big part of that team, and now he's back on the scene late in his college career, popping up in the U24 team.
Yeah, how about Adam Miller making the team? Apparently, he was hurt at tryouts and either was limited or didn't play, and yet he still made the team. Pretty fascinating. I think he was apparently amazing sideline presence, and one of the things they did this year, and they're doing more, is reviewing tape of players. They like what they saw. Strong handler that can run a D-line offense.
Yeah, I see him and Kevin Pignoni on that same men's team, and they both have that kind of characteristic to me of being guys who like really lead a D-line. They're not the biggest playmakers. They're not generally going to put up giant numbers or anything like that. They're not like physically imposing defenders or anything, but they work really hard. They're really smart players, and they're very vocal. And I think that seeing both of those guys make the team it makes it feel like that's either a role that they wanted filled, that the coaches wanted filled, or a characteristic that they were looking for, people who could really bring that energy to a sideline, because I expect those two guys to be leaders on this team.
So one other thing I found interesting, many of the players that I would consider to be the strongest male players at this level are on the mixed team. When you look at Henry Ing, Hayden Austin Nab, Jack Brown, Aiden Downey, even Leo Silva Fernandez, like they have a very strong group of men, and some of them make a sense. Like Henry Ing is just coming off of a season playing mixed. Makes sense to see him on the mixed roster. But are you surprised by that? I think typically we tend to see the strongest group of male players, whatever level you're looking at, whether you're looking at a U.S. national team for the adults or U24s on down, you tend to see the strongest players on the open roster and the women's roster. And then, not that there aren't great players on the mixed team, but usually it's only one or two. I feel like this is an unusually heavy category, particularly on the men's side.
I'm not sure that that's true necessarily, at least recently on this. I mean, remember the last U24 mixed roster had Matt Kushahanis and John Stubbs. Like that, I think that you're seeing some of these players gravitate towards wanting to play with the mixed team because they're looking for a new experience. They're looking to make friends. They're going to.
But is this a selection that the players are making? I think most of the time these players are picking that they would play on either option.
That's possible.
We can't know that, of course.
For those who don't know, our understanding is, so they ask we know they ask the player's preference. They basically say, which team would you prefer to play on, and which team would you be open to playing? Which teams would you be open to play on? So, would you prefer to play mixed or single gender, and would you be okay playing on both of those teams? So they basically kind of put the ball in the player's court to start. I don't even know how frequently they've had to sell somebody hey, we want to take you, but we need you to play on this team that you didn't want to play on.
I think maybe I'm just wrong, Keith. I think maybe I'm just wrong, because when I look at the 2019 mixed team, and I actually remember we talked about this at the time, how good the mixed team was going to be. And they were. They just killed everybody. It
wasn't even contest.
Well, they had Anworth, Joe White, Anna Thompson, Liam Searles Bowes, let's see, I mean, that's obviously a ton of great players. Julia Kwasnik, Michael Ing, Gooch, Joe Freund, and like plenty of other good players, but like some of the very strongest players at that time were on that mixed roster, and they just smashed everybody.
Yeah, well, I'll be curious to see what other mixed rosters end up looking like. I think the only one that we've really seen is Canada, but I don't think that. I think this is a trend that you're going to see continue. I think there are going to be players who like, especially as we've seen more opportunities for players to play like high level single gender. They're getting it in semi-pro leagues. They're getting it at league club too. And I think maybe even more of these U24 players are getting like multiple seasons of elite club experience in prior to this.
True.
So I think that a lot of times they're going to be looking for a new experience. I mean, remember these mixed teams, I think of like Lisa P being like mixed has more fun. Like that used to be.
It definitely seems like a very fun
and you know, you're going out there and they're going to take a trip to London. Like I think they want to hang out in the relaxed environment that I guess a mixed team could potentially provide. Are there a couple more names to talk briefly about? What do you think? Mark Munoz for mixtape. One of a couple players who weren't in college. You mentioned not just because they were too young, but just decided not to play or attend college. So Mark Munoz making the team. Not a big shock given what we've seen from him at the club and semi-pro level. But I don't think that was going on a couple years ago. You know, there weren't players who were outside of the college environment, but he and AJ Merriman both going to be playing with the mixed team. Ava Hanna. Excited to see how she's going to play in that mixed environment.
And like
big throws.
Where will she slot? You know, like you put her on D, or do you let her have the keys to the offense? I don't know what they're going to do too. I mean, maybe they'll just run flat lines.
Yeah,
like,
I wouldn't be surprised by that. But whatever line she's on, like give her the rock like that.
That's right.
Is there a more give her the rock player on this team? I don't think there's somebody else who it's like the offense needs to go through this person. This is our best chance at having a great offense. Like, you got to give the ball to Ava Hanna and get out of the way. You know what I mean? That's
such a powerful tool to have such a strong thrower as a female matching player on a mixed team. Yeah, I mean, who else to shout out?
Nikki Chan from Washington.
Hey, I called Fred Farah, by the way.
You did.
I called that. Calvin Brown making it. That's so exciting for him. I mean, he's been out for a year and a half or something with the injury. And to see him come back, you know, and make this team still 100%, but I think the coaching staff feels like his tryout was impressive enough and that he will be ready to roll by the time next summer rolls around. That's awesome to see. Let's see. Abby Schiltz making the team. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's still impressive. So many strong young players right now.
Yeah, definitely one of a couple of players on these teams who have a shot at another U24 team, I believe. So could be some returners for next year. Nikki Chan from Washington, the hype beast. I mean, just like the best celebrator in the league. We're talking about people who bring great energy on the sidelines and on the field. Like Nikki Chan's going to do that, and obviously has plenty of skill to offer. You don't make the team just by having great sellies. I don't think, but Nikki Chan certainly is going to be somebody to watch for the fun on top of the ability. KJ Koo, talked about him, and you and I were like kind of on the fence about whether he should be a locker or a likely. So we felt strong about his chances of making it, but just noting that where we were on him was founded. I think Albert Yuan from Duke.
Yeah, he did.
There was a lot of hype.
I gotta say one thing. The North Carolina people who are complaining right now because not enough North Carolina people made the team need to just pump the brakes. I just want to put that out there. Like, y'all are doing fine, okay? And not just UNC. Like, there's people from other North Carolina schools that there is more than enough representation, and I'm sorry that your favorite player or friend did not make the team, but you don't get to have all the spots. So that is what I will say about that. It's feeling Seattle-ish down there, Keith.
Yeah.
Starting to get worried for them.
Sometimes it feels like they're trying really hard to be Seattle. Like we're gonna live long enough to see ourselves become the villains kind of thing. Elsa Waybright from Oregon.
Yeah.
Another one of the players. That's the player who was invited to U20s who did not attend, but also made the team. They're going to be so good in college and definitely have the ability to compete at this level. Like I just have no doubts about that. Shout out to my summer league captain, Hannah Huddleston from Stanford. I always love to see, after I'm sure that the summer league title that we won helped. I'm sure that was made it to the application. But excited
I would
to
put
see
that
her.
on my application.
Yeah, I mean, was a breakout player of the year lister, so already had the accolades.
Are you surprised that Claire Babbitt Bryan did not make this team?
I am. I would say that.
Yeah.
Just really versatile experience. Like it wasn't just like, oh, I've dominated D3. Like it's played at the elite club level effectively. Like,
and like played a mile ahead of the rest of the D3 division. Like,
right.
It was crazy.
This was like Tulsa Douglas territory as far as just like being a player who's just absolutely crushing the competition at their level. Definitely a surprise. There were, I feel like, not a lot of D3 representatives here.
Yeah, I mean, we could run down the list. Let's take a look.
Off the top of my head, I can think of like Leo Silva Fernandez, Gigi Downey, Jacob Cowan.
I believe there are 0 D3 representatives on the men's team. Well, pretty much, it's like big state schools and Brown and Harvard.
And Harvard.
Then let's see. On the mixed team, Grinnell. And that maybe is it. Grand Valley State is D1, right?
I believe so.
I think that's D1.
So Jacob Cowan from Grinnell.
Middlebury, you already mentioned. Silva Fernandez. And then on the women's team, Mount Holyoke, Marguerite Downey. And Bellevue, don't know. Just straight up do not know. Laura Toe.
That is, I will say, I'll just cop to it. That is the only player on these rosters who I like really have no familiarity with.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, is Bellevue in? It's in Nebraska.
No, I'm sure it's in Seattle. I don't even have to look up.
That was my thought too.
To guess, maybe there's got to be in Seattle.
There's a separate one. There's a Bellevue College in Washington. There's a Bellevue University in Nebraska. This must be Bellevue College. I agree 100%. It's just outside of Seattle. I don't know that they have a college ultimate team.
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know if they have a college ultimate team either. I'm sure someone will let us know. I'm 100% confident of that. But
well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's definitely cool. It's a good way to not have people hate on you for being from Seattle and make you a national team.
So I think that's it, though. I think that's it.
Yeah, it's. I don't know if that's more or less than usual, but not a lot.
Well, I could look up the 2019 U24 roster. Let's see, just as a point of comparison. I mean, I think it's the division. The D3 division is still just. It's got a lot less support. It's got a lot less coaching, and you really have to stand out, I think, to get noticed. Let's see.
And maybe even by pure volume. I mean, I don't know what percentage of all college players are D3 college players, but I'm sure it's a small amount compared to D1.
Alyssa Sue from Whitman. Portland State, is that D1? I think it's D1. Abby Chang from Oberlin. Bard, I think, is D.
I think so, yes.
Not a Peppy, D3. Linnea Sue from Whitman, and I think that was it.
So, yeah, so I guess this is about similar. 4 or so. Yeah, so it's about in the same boat.
But I mean, like, I would have expected Silva Fernandez and Babbitt Bryan to both make the team, and only one of them did. So, yeah.
I did okay on dark horses. I got a couple. I had Akimi on my dark horse. Kira Flores from Virginia, Rita Fetter from Brown. I mentioned Wilhelmina Graff from Yale. She didn't make it. And then my men's dark horses like really didn't do well. I didn't get any of those. So our picks are in the Discord for those of you who are subscribers and want to take a look. Our full pick list, which pretty much all of it made it to the show. But those did not quite pan out. But I think that in the end, like, we had a pretty good hit rate given that we didn't have tryouts to look at. You know, there wasn't footage. There was the tiniest bit of footage on Hector Valdivia's Twitter, one of the assistant coaches. But that is it. Otherwise, there was not a lot to go off of other than our impressions of players from their careers. So given that, I feel pretty good about our rates. Although I'm still sad to miss a lock.
I know.
It's tough.
I don't see how you say Hazel Ostrowski was not like wasn't a tryout. So what can I say? But it's very surprising she didn't make the team. People aren't really talking about her that much, but I think they should be. I mean, I think, you know, to be like rookie of the year in 2020, to be an all-American selection in 2022, and to not make the team is definitely very surprising.
There are a couple other players who I was surprised by. I was a bit surprised that Erica Birdsong from UNC made it. A young player, just won gold with the U20 team. Is like really a D-line player. And that is a role that I don't know that I would have expected her to be one of the players they would pick out to do that. But obviously showed them something. Has really great length. Is somebody who makes a big impact defensively, and I think is probably now is going to get a lot of hype going into the college season. But was somebody I think this would have been the year that I would have expected them to break out for UNC. But I guess I was behind on the trend.
A little too slow.
Yeah, a little too slow. Also interesting to me that there are 3 players who just finished club seasons in the mixed division on the women's team who are playing with the women's team. Lane Dodge from AMP, Margot Donahue from Polar Bears, and Gigi Downey from SLO, all playing on the women's team, along with Rita Fetter, who also was on SLO. So a bit surprising to me to see players who played club mixed, but have opted to play in the women's division for this event. So,
I mean, again, opted. I think most of the time players are being picked by the coaching staff, depending on what the coaches are looking for. And they like bargain. The coaches bargain. They're like, well, we both thought this player was the best player. Who gets them? They're trying to make balanced teams. And so you end up with players who I think mostly it makes sense. And obviously, I can't imagine there's very many players who say, I will not play on the mixed team or the single gender team. That seems a little too risky.
I wonder, man, how much would I pay to sign an NDA and sit in and listen to the coaches pick the rosters? Probably
how much would you pay?
At least $50.
That's wow. Keith, you're a big spender.
At least $50 to literally just sit there and listen. And I can't even use it for Ultimate. I can't report on it or whatever. At least $50. What do you mean big spender? How much would you pay to sit in a room and listen to people talk?
I mean, yeah, you're probably right. I don't think it would be a lot more than that.
Would I go up to a hundo? Though. I think I'd pay $100, but
I'd
that's
like
probably
to see
capping it out.
How the sausage gets made. You know, like how much fighting is there? Is everybody pretty chill about stuff? I don't know. It would be interesting.
I don't even know the mechanics of the process. Like, is it like a draft? Because that's what I'm picturing in my head. And like, you come in and you say like, okay, here's the core players that we know we want for this team, and here's the core players we want. The mixed coaches are like, here's the players we want on the mixed team. Here's our core. These are the players that maybe there's a number like we want these 8 players, and the men's team and women's team coaches do the same thing. And wherever they have a difference, they hash out what's the best fit and who they want the most, and then they work their way down the list. That's what I'm picturing. But like, have they already picked the pool at that point? Do they know the 72 players before they walk in the room, and then they're divvying them up, or while they're there, are they like figuring out the last 5 on the roster? I don't know how this stuff works.
I would imagine that they come in with a list of players that they would like to have on their team. They probably more or less rank the players.
Oh man,
maybe positionally, and then there's some horse trading around who gets the, you know, when they're on both the mixed and the single gender team, like who gets them. And I'm sure they have to do some balancing because, you can't just, it's not just like players are just randomly distributed. You need O-line handler, D-line handler, D-line cutter defender, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to have positional rankings probably so that you can build a roster that makes sense. And it probably takes a lot of time, honestly.
I imagine that it does, but man, if I get the full document, I get a full ranked list too. I'm willing to pay more for that. My entry fee is going up. No, I'm above 100 if I'm getting to look at like literally the coaches have full ranked lists of the entire. Yeah, I'm paying more money. Like, if you're looking for revenue, USA Ultimate, hit me up.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for today's show. We are looking forward to some holiday episodes coming up as we get ready to wrap up 2022 and head into 2023. It's going to be an exciting year. Still kind of waiting on a lot of information about next year, to be honest. We don't know where D1 Nationals is going to be. Well, we don't know where D3 Nationals is going to be either. We don't really have any information yet about the club season. I mean, all of this information should be coming out over the next month, I would imagine. But it's pretty surprising that we don't even know where college nationals is going to be held yet. So we're expecting things kind of to be back to normal in a lot of ways.
So
normal,
play-in tournament,
everything
is still
except eligibility rules is pretty much normalized.
So you're saying a play-in tournament is still a possibility here?
It's still a possibility, Keith.
It's the doors are open.
By the way, I know you've been asking, Keith. You've been confused about eligibility stuff. Do you want to know the? You want to know the facts?
Not for me, but for a friend. For anybody any listener who I consider a friend. Any listener out there who's confused about this, I am fully aware now of what's going on. So Charlie, enlighten everybody else who's listening, not me at all.
Got it. If you are curious to read the full eligibility rules, you can go to the USAU website, and they have the 2023 eligibility guidelines up there. It's been up since at least September. And they have the various things about consortiums and academic eligibility and, degree seeking, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff is pretty much as it has been. The difference this year, and it's really gotten simplified, essentially. Eligibility was extended by 1 year for all players who were within their 5-year eligibility window in the spring of 2021. So remember that. If you were playing College Ultimate in 2021, everybody got a 1-year extension. And so what that means is that everybody can take a 6th year until those people graduate. So if you were a freshman in 2021, 22, 23, 24, those players could play all the way until the 2026 spring season. So we're going to have that bonus year available for players until then, which is a long time to have this kind of ripple of COVID eligibility extension happening. But that is the deal. So if you started playing College Ultimate in what would have been the 2018 spring season, and your start date,
or you were eligible to and had an active USAU membership, right? Like if you were having a gap year, that your clock starts even though you weren't in college.
Yeah, it depends. Like the rules on when your clock starts depends on either you play in a sanctioned college regular season tournament, or there are other things like playing club nationals and stuff can start your clock.
We're in the weeds, but yes,
we're definitely in the weeds.
Just to clarify,
but basically, if someone was a 5th year last year, they can play another season. That's the short story.
And this is the last year that we will have people who otherwise traditionally would not have been eligible to play College Ultimate playing, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's wrong.
We have 2 more years of
that. At least. No, like 2026 will be the last year, Keith. Because anybody who was eligible to play College Ultimate in 2021 got an extension of 1 year. So what would normally have been a 5-year eligibility window is now a 6-year eligibility window for all of those people.
I'm trying to think of how that's actually going to affect how we feel. You know the feeling of like, man, I can't believe this person's still in college. Usually that almost always comes because somebody was really good their rookie year, so you've known who they are for 5 years, and like that feels too long. You're like, I probably should only know who this person is for 3 years, but even I get that sense. We're gonna get a lot of that. There's gonna be a lot of like, I can't believe this person's still around.
Definitely. So there you go. That is gonna do it for today's show. Join us for our subscriber bonus segment Out the Back. With any level of subscription, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe. And we're looking forward to wrapping up the year and looking ahead to 2023. We're in the middle of the 12 Days of College Ultimate as well. So make sure you check out all of that content. D3 picks up yesterday. D1 staff picks going up today. And we've got some cool video features coming up over the weekend. So make sure that you stay tuned for all of that. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long. And we'll talk to you next week right here on Deep Look.